shooting crap, and I got hot, and I broke the game. And so the guy, I remember a guy that was an all-American football player from Texas, and he borrowed money from me. I gave him $50 so he could go home. Well, that's a lot of money in those days. But anyway, when I bought this ring for her, and she went home, and Mother was sitting here, and Dad poured, and she sat next to her. She says, "Look, Mother." And her mother looked. She said, "You know, that little finger of yours never did straighten up, did it?" You know, you show them your finger. Look at her. You see that little finger? That's all she said. That was it. Now that was what you call a, what do you call that kind of remark?
Snub. We call that grandma snuff remark.
An understatement.
She was, well, it was just not admitting that I even existed at that time. But I'll tell you what, I can understand when my kids started to think, I could understand why her mother felt like she did. Here comes a guy that's 4.5 years older than an 18-year-old girl or 19-year-old girl, and would come and, you know.
Me.
Oh,
Meaning you. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You know,
I was going to say, I thought you meant one of us.
Not
One
only
of
that,
you.
he was pretty obnoxious.
Oh,
I
Lynn
mean, he
came-
would call up there, and he would call up there.
I called one time because I wanted to talk to her, and they said she's not here. I called collect, incidentally. I didn't have any money.
That might have had something to do with it.
And
I don't know,
finally
I
got
don't
her
like
mother,
that.
and she said, she doesn't want to talk to you. And I said, "What do you mean she doesn't want to talk to me?" I said, "I want to talk to her." She said, "Well, she doesn't want to talk to you." And she hung up on me. Well, I went down to the cottage. This was in the summer. I went down to the cottage, and I was cottage head. I was in charge. There was like 4 freshmen or sophomores living. I got paid $25 or $30 a month for it. And I went up to the screen door, and I hit the darn screen door with my fist. But it wasn't a regular screen door. It was that like corrugated screen. Cut my hand up, and stuff like that. Oh, I had a furious temper. But
That's on the past, though.
no, I'm just trying to explain it was true
He doesn't have
love.
a furious temper
True
anymore.
love. I was.
You said had, didn't he?
I used to work at the coal mine, and we worked on Fridays. And what I'd do is I would work a double shift. I would work from 4 or 3 to 11. Now you couldn't work a double shift right through, so I would sleep on a slack pile just on the outside, 11 o'clock till 12. Then at 12 o'clock I'd go back to work, and then finish at 8, and then I'd go get washed up, cleaned up and everything on Saturday, and I would hitchhike up to see her. Now at this time I didn't have a car. Well, Du Bois is about how far from Indiana, G? I hitchhiked up there. And she would sneak into town and say she's going to the movie once to see me. But that's the way it was. It wasn't easy. I didn't have a car, and I don't know how to survive, but it did. Then
I see backing
but,
out there.
and I told Cookie, remember Cookie, Lynn? I don't think
Just barely. I remember her coming to our house once.
And I went on this trip
Well, these other girls remember her because they went with her from stopping her house in Utah. Remember?
Oh yeah. Well,
Glenn didn't go
when this happened, and she dropped out of school, it was the year before that, and they were close friends, and then they got this in their heads, and they planned it because we decided we're going to run off and get married, and I said, "Well, what are we going to do?" And she said, "Well, I'll call Cookie." And she called Cookie, I called, and I talked to her, and I said, "Well, Gene, I want to get
Oh, this is what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and I rigged, this was all planned. I didn't realize it, but she and Cookie must have planned it.
You just said I rigged it.
You rigged it.
You just said I rigged it.
I think you'll
Now
get
you-
it. No,
Now, who rigged it? Who did what?
Now, who did rig it?
well, the thing about it was that here you are, you know, I hardly knew Cookie. I knew her, but just that. And she suggested we'll call Cookie. And because we'd gone out down there to see her and her boyfriend once. We went down to see them. And when I called, I said, you know, Gene, I want to get married. And she said, oh, well, what can I do? And I said, well, we need a church. And she said, gee, suggest maybe your church. You know, I think I can arrange that. And then I said, Gene wants you to sing at our wedding. Oh, she said, I'll be glad to do that. And then she said, well, see, the father will give, you know, the bride. She said, oh, yeah. Now that's got to be a big deal, Joe. Nobody could come up with those answers like that without finding out if they could do this. The first thing I know, I'm married.
Not only that, but he borrowed $50 from his sister.
Oh, I did, yeah. I borrowed $50, but I invited her to the wedding.
Yeah.
That's when she brought the $50.
So you guys had to run off to get married, in other words.
We
You
didn't
didn't
have to. We
but her
just
parents weren't there, or
did. No.
didn't have their blessing.
Well, that's not. Well,
No, we didn't have their blessing.
I spent my lifetime trying to make up for it.
Because I think my folks really expected me to help put the rest of the kids through school. I was the first one to go to college. Well, I think they were, and I didn't get to do that because you all came along and we didn't have any money.
But well, I'll tell you, it was lean times, but somehow we made it. We had our differences. I can remember Lynn coming home crying because every time she brought her boy home, I asked what her father did. How much money did your father make?
I don't remember that. I just
So
remember
I do. I remember
asking
you
me-
crying about Daddy embarrasses me. Yes, boy, always treats him like. Yeah, I remember you. See, that's.
Well, I don't remember that.
You
I
asked how
remember
much you
giving
asked.
him the third degree, but
Well, that's
not
what
about
I'm saying.
everything.
You were saying that.
You asked them how much their fathers made.
Well, sometimes. What's your father do?
Oh,
That was the first question.
He's in coal.
Well,
Did anyone ever say that?
yeah, well, when I was in the Navy and an officer, you know, when we were in San Francisco and Oregon, we'd get invited to these very, very wealthy people. They had a lot of money and they wanted to show their, whatever they call it, towards the servicemen, you know, their, where they support for the service. Hospitality. And they had daughters and that, and they were daughters in college and that. So they invite officers, no enlisted man, just officers. So when we came into these places, like I remember San Francisco the first time, I sort of told them I went to Indiana State Teachers College, and you know there was about 3 officers invited to the family, and then they had girls, single girls there, and that to entertain and that stuff. And I told my father was a coal miner. They looked at me and I thought, well, okay. So the next time I went, they said, where do you go to school? I said, Indiana State. Indiana University.
Yeah.
They said, what's your father do? I said, oh, he's big in coal. And that was the end of that. I was really not lying about it.
No, you weren't.
He was deep in coal. And some, you know, but it was so false. Their, what do I want to say? Their efforts make you
Yeah.
feel like you're important in that. And, it was just that, you know, before I met your mother, I had a girl, my first girl that I went with, and her name was Keith Whalen.
Can you believe they would name me after her?
And well,
No.
she was a very lovely girl, a nice girl.
Well, I know,
good
but-
girl.
How did mother let you
And
get away
still,
with
I
that?
asked her what her father did for a living, you know. And she said, well, he sells insurance. In my mind, right away, coming from Wimber, that's the guy that came around each month and collected his $1.25. I thought, well, I said, what kind of car does he drive? Well, he has a Buick. I said, new one. She said, no, it's not new. I thought, well, you know, in my mind, I thought, well, and where do you live? She said, Mount Lebanon. That didn't mean a thing to me. I'd never been in Pittsburgh. So she said, well, why don't you come down and see me, meet my